we have to look ahead to Jesus. And that's what that song called us to do. And I think it was preparing us.
It is not death to die, to leave this weary road and join the saints who dwell on high, who found their home with God.
Unfortunately, though, no song could take away the hurt and pain that both Terry and Juanita were feeling and the huge sense of loss they had to deal with.
There was a huge sense of unbelief as well. You know, I can't believe this is happening, and just the word surreal came out several times. You know, it just seemed like somebody else. It couldn't be us.
Because not only does that not happen to your own family, but it doesn't happen in a small town on a Saturday afternoon.
Right.
Neighbors say the community is relatively a quiet one. The kids run freely.
Overnight, the Stauffer family were inundated with media requests, and Emily's death became a national story. Soon, even Pastor Terry's personal blog was privy to many all over the world as they watched this family as they were forced to deal with their grief publicly.
Whole concept that this grief was going to be bigger than me and bigger than us in our family really began to settle in on the day after Emily's death. She was killed on a Saturday evening, and it was on a Sunday. We had a lot of people in our living room, and the combination of the instant media coverage all over the country, plus a comment that our local Christian school principal made about Dale Lang, my initial thought was, this is nothing like that. And then I thought, wait a second, this is going to come with some obligation to have a public face. We weren't ready for that right away. And it's still hard. Every step is hard, but we want to be faithful. And I think that was the main thought that I had initially was, I want to be faithful. I want people to turn and look to God, not to us in this.
Simply because it was God, as well as their community and church, they say, that helped and continues to help both of them through their grief.
Well, for myself, I've been preaching a big God, a high view of God's sovereignty. So the concept of God being big and me being small was already there. But for that time, especially immediately after Emily's death, God seemed a lot bigger and I seemed a lot smaller. And both Juanita and I really went into Scripture, and there are some older authors from the 19th century and earlier that we turned to that wrote on suffering. Charles Spurgeon is one of them. And just the concept of how big God is and how reliable He is. The Psalms were a wonderful refuge for us.
I really believe that God gives you strength in the moment.
Yes.
That He prepares you. I do think He prepares us if we're open to Him beforehand. We can look back and see specific ways that our hearts were being prepared. And I think the other part of the process is that we really have to give ourselves permission to grieve. For myself, it was, I think, at the 6-month mark where I really started to feel that I could look back on that and think, I think that was a turning point for me, but I don't even know that. I mean, we're only a year into the process, and I have talked to people who are much farther in, and really your whole life. But there's a sense of the rawness of grief is not as raw, and yet every once in a while it just hits us.
Literally 2 months after Emily's death, 62 days to be exact, a local resident of Edson was arrested and charged with the murder.
Ross Edward Kleeman, age 43, of Edson.
While the Stauffers wait to see what happens next, I asked them about forgiveness. Will they ever be able to forgive the person responsible for their daughter's death, whomever that might be? Their answer might surprise you.
Within the week after she died was really a conviction that vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And we really did want to rest in that. So that took away a lot of the possibility for bitterness, I think. And in recognizing that God is in control, it still recognizes that there's evil and there's sin in this world. And God did not caused this to happen, but he allowed it to happen. So if I look at the character of God, then it calls me to rest in him. As far as forgiveness goes, it really is such a process. It's not something that I can say at this moment that I've forgiven him, but it's not, I don't say that there's bitterness in my heart either.
I think just realizing that there are stages of forgiveness, and the first one is always to relinquish any ownership of the bitterness and the vengeance to God, and God has graciously allowed us to do that first stage by saying, Lord, it's yours, and we release that to him and to his absolute status as the righteous judge.
Today, the Stauffers say they are still dealing with Emily's death, a daily process they are not sure they will ever get used to. But if anything, they want people to know that Emily was a good person, a beautiful 14-year-old, and she is sorely missed by many.
How do you want people to remember your daughter?
I think just the way that people who knew her do. Just that she was a girl who loved God. She wanted to serve him with her whole heart. And that's what people remember about her. And so that's what I would hope that others do as well.
In Edson, Alberta, Magdalene John, 100 Huntley Street.